These three articulation mistakes are the reason that you might be blanking out, especially when you're put on the spot. And the funny thing is, you might not be even realizing that you're making these mistakes. So in this video, we're going to get into what those mistakes are and very simple practical techniques you can implement to avoid them. Now, I've spent majority of my adult life in front of people who are passionate about improving their communication skills. And when you observe so many people, you tend to observe certain patterns that make it very clear as to what are repetitive mistakes people are making that is halting their communications progress. And I just didn't see these mistakes in others, but also in myself. So I want to spend some time on them. So understanding these three mistakes will help you know the correct way to slow down your speed of talking, how to make clarity the number one priority of your speaking, and a mindset shift to help you look at impromptu speaking differently. By the way, if you're new here, my name is Pradeep from Frantically Speaking. We release communications content regularly. So if you're into that, hit subscribe. And if you want to take your communications learning to the next level, you can click the link in the description to check out our courses and see if we can work together. Now, for most of us, when we're trying to improve our articulation, there's one piece of advice that we get over and over again, and that is to simply slow down and pause while you're speaking. And that is the very first mistake I want to address, that pausing is the way to become a more articulate speaker. And don't get me wrong, it's not incorrect to say that pausing helps us become better. It's just that that advice is a little generic. And it's an advice point that we often give our students as well. But we've been trying to reduce that a little because what I realized with myself being a naturally fast speaker and with other students as well, pausing doesn't come very naturally. And it's difficult to be conscious of it, especially when you're put on the spot. But the end goal remains the same. We still want to pause when we speak. However, we want to start off practicing it in a more realistic fashion, as opposed to just trying to tell our mind that, hey, pause a little more, pause a little more. So that's where this technique comes in, called the key word drop technique. This simply means that when you start speaking, a lot of us tend to use a filler word when we begin our sentence. So instead of just jumping into our sentence after saying the filler word, which could be a word like, so here's the thing, honestly, and then we get into our sentence. What we can do is have a pause right after that initial filler word. For example, instead of saying, so the deployment failed because the staging environment wasn't aligned with the production, we can instead say, so the deployment failed because the staging environment wasn't aligned with production. We're still going fast in the sentence, but by adding that initial pause, helps us to practice pausing during conversations itself. And it also helps punctuate our point. The second mistake we tend to make is to not prioritize clarity of our speaking. And the main mistake is that we tend to focus a lot more on the words we use as opposed to how we're delivering those words. And a lot of the times, knowledgeable people miss out on credit because they're not able to deliver their ideas or messages properly. And that mainly happens because we're too focused on the actual content of our sentences as opposed to the clarity that we are portraying. Now, there are a lot of techniques you can utilize to improve the clarity of your communication, but the easiest one you can do is to simply open your mouth completely when you're speaking. I've spoken about this before as well, and generally I tend to recommend taking up a paragraph and any article or book and reading it out loud by opening your jaw completely like this. It helps us to really emphasize on every single syllable to ensure that we are practicing opening our mouth completely. Not only does this help slow down our pace, but it also helps with overall clarity of speaking. But another technique I learned from one of our voice coaches is to simply take a pen and put it in your mouth and try talking dead. So if I have a pen, I'll just put it like this and try to talk. And this will force my mouth to open completely. Just try to use a slightly bigger pen than this. Doing this for about 2 to 5 minutes and reading out any paragraph will help you be more comfortable with opening your mouth completely and hence add to your clarity, which hence adds to your articulation. And the final mistake we tend to make is our mindset with regard to articulation. We often think that speaking on the spot actually means that, oh, I'm put on the spot and I have absolutely no time to prepare and I got to speak. Whereas communications can get a little more complex than that. The truth is that impromptu speaking is a skill like anything else. And the more we practice for it deliberately, when we're put on the actual battleground, we're able to perform effectively. What I mean by that is you want to put yourself actively in positions where you're made to speak spontaneously. And there are two suggestions I have for you. First one, join a Toastmasters club. There, if you live in a metro city, there must be one around you somewhere. You can just Google it. They have a section called Table Topics where anyone can volunteer, come on stage and speak on a random topic for 1 minute. But if you cannot do that for whatever reason, here's a much simpler approach. Have one communications buddy with you. Now, it could be a family member, a colleague, or a friend who also wants to improve their articulation. And I did this with one of my friends. His name is Gaurav. When we were on our communications journey back in college, we wanted to improve our impromptu speaking. So we did this exercise where we would call each other up. Now, the rules of the call were that the call cannot exceed 5 minutes. We cannot banter about how our day was and get into other topics. We simply have to do 4 things. Number 1, I have to give him a random topic and time him. He has to immediately speak on it for a minimum of 1 minute and maximum of 2 minutes. I then have to spend 30 to 60 seconds giving him feedback. And he simply then repeats the same for me. As soon as his feedback is done, we end the call there itself. And we were able to do this consistently for a good amount of time because it was a quick call. We could do it at the end of our day without much pressure. That means when we finally did go on a stage or when we were put on the spot, we were able to think a lot faster because of all the repetitions we had done before. And along with this, you can also learn different frameworks to help structure your communication more effectively. In fact, we've created an entire video on those frameworks, which you can check out right here.